Alright. I'm Ron McCarty here interviewing Bob Eastment.
Eastment, right? Yes.
Eastment, alright. For my World War II Living History project. Alright. So, when were you born?
I was born November 10th, 1923.
Alright. So you grew up in the Depression, right?
I did, yes.
What was it like during that time?
Well, it was not easy. I was just a young child. My father worked in the construction business, and he had a pretty good job until one day. I think it was probably about sometime in 1929 or 1930. He came home and the job had ended, and he was out of work for 2 or 3 years, and then the Public Works administration started up, and he got a job working there, and stayed on that for several years. And then when the war broke out, I had left home by then, and but it was very difficult because I had a sister who went to college, and my grandmother must have had some money because I graduated from high school in 1941 in New Jersey, Nutley High School, and there wasn't enough money to go to a 4-year school, so I went to the New York State Ranger School in Wanakena, New York, which is part of the College of Forestry, or STUNY, Environmental Science and Forestry College now, and graduated from that in 1943. And then I went in. Graduated in February, I guess it was, of '43, and in March or April went in the Marine Corps.
All right. And, so like, what attracted you to the Marine Corps?
I don't know. I didn't particularly want to go in the Army, and I didn't want to go and get seasick in the Navy. So I decided I'd try I didn't really think too much about the Coast Guard, so I decided to try the Marine Corps. And I had no regrets about that.
Okay. When you first signed up for the Marine Corps,
Yes.
What happened? Like, where did they send you?
When I went to the Ranger School, I went there in March of 1942, and I had a 1-year deferment for an educational deferment.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I graduated from the Ranger School in 1943, and I had to report to the draft board, and within 30 days I was in the service.
All right.
And went to Parris Island Recruit Depot in South Carolina, and I've got a map here that might not going to show up much on that film, I guess, but this will show you where this Parris Island, South Carolina is in about there, and then from there I was transferred to. I went to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina.
Okay.
Then I wound up on the West Coast in Camp Pendleton and Camp Elliott, and from there I went way across down to New Caledonia, which was a French island, and we were on it was a Dutch freighter that was converted to a troop ship, and that took, I crossed the equator, and I was on New Caledonia for about a month, I think, in a replacement depot, waiting to be assigned to to a unit, and then after about a month, I was assigned to get on a great big passenger liner down in the harbor in New Caledonia, and there was this replacement depot that I was in. It was way back up in the country, and I got down there was a whole bunch of us that were going down there to be transferred, and we got down there and started about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and about sunset or 8 o'clock that night, there were about a dozen of us left there. And they said, well, what are you guys doing here? You're not, we don't have anything about you. So they had to go back up to the replacement depot and get my records and bring them back down. I finally got on board ship about 10 o'clock at night. And I was down about 5 decks down below, and it was about 110 degrees down there. And all I could want to do was get out of there and get up and get up on the deck and fall asleep up there, which I did. And the next morning I didn't. I had taken my sea bag with me down there and was on the bunk, but I didn't know where it was. And all of a sudden I ran into a fellow that I had known at Paris Island in boot camp, and I said, he said, I've been looking all over for you. And I said, well, how did you know I was here? He said, well, I saw your sea bag. He said, well, take me and show me where it is because I don't know how to get there. Well, anyhow, that was about that. I think that trip from from New Caledonia to Guadalcanal took about 4 or 5 days, I think. And I was assigned to this 1st Marine Amphibious Corps, and they were I was a headquarters and service battalion, and the commanding general was a general by the name of Roy Geiger. And he and this all we had a big commissary there, and they had they had 6 or 7 huge refrigerators there, big walk-in type refrigerators, and I was with a group of fellows that were servicing those refrigerators. And well, here's a picture of me. It was taken the day I was sworn into the Marine Corps. And, that's another picture of me on Guadalcanal. And this is the refrigeration crew we had on Guadalcanal. And
Which one are you?
let's see, I'm the third one from the left.
All right.
And then, so I was on Guadalcanal. And it was nothing. The fighting was all over at that point.
Yeah.
There was nothing going on there. I think when I first got there, there might have been a few air raids, isolated air raids, but nothing that involved me or that I even knew about. But there for about a year or more, and then the way this outfit worked was that the 1st Marine Amphibious Corps, they would organize, get Marine divisions, and they'd go on an operation. And when I was on Guadalcanal waiting, they went on the Guam operation. They attacked Guam and took that over. But I didn't go on that one. I was back at the base. And then finally, in early 1945, we loaded a big refrigerator, a 400 cubic foot refrigerator on a truck, and put it on board a ship, and we were going. The commanding general and his staff, the staff that he took with him, were going on this operation. We didn't know where we were going, and we stopped on the way and had a little beer party at a place called Ulithi Atoll. And then
Tell me where that is.
I think I've got it right here. Let's see. Yeah, it's only a small little place. It doesn't show on here. But we were going to Okinawa.
Yep.
And we got there, and I went ashore the first day. And it was fairly quiet, and the weather was awful. Oh boy, it rained and rained and rained, and we didn't have any tents. We were just living in foxholes and shelter halves, and it was a miserable experience. And then I was there. They finally secured the island, and I didn't participate in that at all. Really, I was just keeping the general's food from spoiling, and I think it was back in July of 1945. See, we landed on Okinawa on April 1st, 1945, which happened to be Easter Sunday. and when I left there, it was in July, I'm quite sure, June or July. And then the outfit went back to Guam. I'd never been to Guam before.
Yeah.
We went there, and after about, we'd been there for about a month, and then they had VJ Day, the Japanese surrendered. And the Third Marine Division was camped right down the road from where the H&S battalion, headquarters and service battalion was, and they started to take a lot of their equipment out on lighters out into the ocean and just run it off into the sink it, and just run it. A lot of the equipment had been there for 3 or 4 years. It was all shot. So so the next then the next couple of days after that, we loaded our equipment onto an LSM, a landing ship medium, and we took all of our equipment, all of our personal belongings with us, and we left port, left Guam, and the next day we thought we were heading for the States, but the next day we got up and we found out we were going west, not east.
Yeah.
So we didn't know where we were going, and but we were going to China.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
What do you remember? Anything about what you were doing when you found out the Japanese surrendered?
Oh, we were thrilled. You know, it was I think we were on. Let's see now. We were on Okinawa when Germany surrendered, and then just shortly after we got to back to Guam or to Guam, I'd never been there before. It was I don't know, maybe 3 weeks or so when VJ Day came. So we figured, well, the next stop is home. We're going home.
Yeah.
But as I said, we got on this LSM, landing ship medium, and we took off. We were going overnight, and then the next morning, it didn't take much to figure out we weren't going east. We were going west, and so we wound up in China.
You have any idea why you went to China? Or?
Yeah, well, to take the surrender of the Japanese troops. There were a lot of Japanese troops in China.
Were they unwilling? To
No, they didn't give us where we were in Tianjin, China, which is a big city in North China. It's about 50 or 60 miles from Beijing as we know it today, and they were fine. In fact, we had to keep them busy, and we were living with before the war. The Marine Corps had an establishment in Tianjin. They had a whole city block or compound, and then they had a utility plant off that, and adjacent to that, and that's where the group that I was in were staying, and we had Chinese cooks there, and then every day we'd have the Japanese prisoners come in and wash the windows, and every day, not once a week, every day they'd wash the windows, and they'd do some of the work that we were supposed to be doing, and they were perfectly content that we didn't have any trouble with any of them, and then we got into China about September, and we'd been in the tropics for 2.5 years, or 2 years I had been anyhow, and but then it started to turn cold in October and November.
Not used to that.
really got cold, and we didn't have any equipment or clothing, but we finally did get some heavy coats and some woolen pants and uniforms, and then let's see, I know they were discharging Marines by the number of points you had, and at first I didn't have enough points to qualify for discharge, but then as time went by, I accrued points, and then let's see, I think I left China. Well, I know I was there for New Year's Eve because we had a big party, but it was probably in January or February of 1946. That would have been that I left China, and Yeah, well, the interesting thing, when we arrived in China, Tianjin was on a big river. And so these LSMs were, and this fleet that we were in, there were 6 or 7 these LSMs, which were, they were probably 200 feet long, something like that. And a landing craft, they opened up the bow and you could drive out of them. And they were going to go up through there. They were going to take them right up to Tianjin. But we were in a tremendous big flat plain, and the river was wide, but it started to narrow up as we got upstream, and the wind was blowing ferociously. And the Navy crews, they were pretty good in the deep water, but we hit 2 other LSAs on the way up, and they decided to abandon that, so they drove them up the shore, and we unloaded them and then drove up to Tianjin. And we still didn't know where we were going. Somebody was leading the way, and we got there just about before sunset, and we could see this tremendous city in the near distance. And as we approached it, we could see a lot of Chinese, but we could see an awful lot of white people, not Orientals. And we thought that they might be English people, but what they turned out to be, and were very nice people. They were what they called White Russians. They had left Russia in 1917 in the revolution, and they were mostly Jewish people. They were very nice people, and I got to know quite a few of them. And they'd been in Tianjin for a long time. They had restaurants and taverns and bars and things like that. And I think everybody, including myself, when we found out we were not going home when we left Guam, we were very disappointed. But once we got to China, and it was a good experience, and we weren't there very long, so it was still still awfully nice to get home, but it was a pretty good experience.
You mentioned something about getting discharged by like how many points you had or something. Can you explain like the point system?
Well, that's kind of a dim picture right now, but I'm sure it had to do for how long you'd been in service, and also how long you'd been overseas. And I'd been overseas. I was overseas about 2 years, and because there were fellows that were coming over I left before they left, and so it was based pretty much on the time that you were overseas.
Okay.
And then we left Tianjin, and they took us down the river on an LSM. They finally got them upstream, and it was probably 50 or 60 miles down to Tidewater. And we got down there late one afternoon, and we slept in a great big warehouse, and there were no blankets, but there were a lot of mattresses, and it was cold. Oh boy, it was cold. We just used mattresses as blankets. And we finally, the next day, we didn't know what kind of a ship we were getting on. We got on an aircraft carrier, and it was a baby flat top, they called them. They used to use them mostly for transporting aircraft overseas. And from there, we got on the aircraft carrier at the mouth of the river that Tianjin was on, and we went from there to Honolulu. And we spent about 12 hours there while they refueled the aircraft carrier. And then from there we went to San Diego, California, and spent a night or 2 there, and then got on a troop train the next day, and wound up 4 or 5 days later in the Bethesda Naval Air Station in Maryland. And that's where I was discharged.
Okay. When did you get home? When did you arrive back to where you live, saw your family for the first time?
Oh yeah. Well, I'll never forget that, because I got home, and I lived the house was on a bus route, and I got off, and it was in Nutley, New Jersey, and And I had called, and so my mother and father were expecting me. And so I got off the bus right across the street, right across from the house, and went over and knocked on the door. And I noticed there was a man behind me walking up the sidewalk right behind me. My father opened at the door, and they hadn't seen me in 2.5 years, I guess, and so my mother was all upset. They were very emotional. The fellow that was behind me was from the Red Cross, and he was coming to see if he could collect some money. He didn't get a very warm reception at that point. But anyhow, but they were certainly glad to see me, and I was more than glad to see them. After I got through boot camp, I think I'd had a week's furlough or leave, and then I hadn't been home since then. It was wonderful to get home.
So, were you married after?
Yeah, well, see, I'd been to the Ranger School before that, before I went in the Marine Corps. So I applied for a job with an international paper company. It was hiring people up for northern Maine. They were doing a big timber cruising parties up there. So I got a job with them, and then I applied to Syracuse and College of Forestry, and that's my diploma from the Ranger School, and that was in 1943. And then I was accepted at Syracuse. So I enrolled there as a sophomore. I got a year's credit for the Ranger School, and then I enrolled in September of 1946 at the College of Forestry in Syracuse, and then went back to work for IP the next summer. I worked for IP 3 summers, and then I graduated from Syracuse in 1949, and when I was on the verge of getting married. I met my wife at Syracuse, and we were planning to get married, and I could have gone back to work for IP, but I would have been in the woods all the time, and it wouldn't work out for somebody trying to get off, make a good start. So I took a job in Arkansas, and I was down there for 3 years, and came back. I didn't like Arkansas too much, and my wife didn't like it. Our oldest daughter was born there, our oldest child, and then I got a job with the state of Rhode Island, and as a forester, and I stayed there for a couple of months, and that was an awful outfit. The state government there was, so I went back with IP, International Paper Company, and I was with them for 35 years. So, we lived in Arkansas, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Maine, Speculator, New York. I moved to Glens Falls twice. Moved to Glens Falls in 1963 from Speculator, and moved back here in 1975, I guess it was, from Maine. And I've seen quite a bit of the country.
Yeah. So how has the war affected you?
Well, it didn't really affect me much. I suppose the biggest effect was that I got a college education from the GI Bill of Rights, and my family wouldn't have been. I don't know where the money came to put me through the Ranger School. Well, I had $1,000 saved up when I went to the Ranger School, planning to spend it, but then somehow or other my father and mother found $1,000, and I still had the $1,000 when I got out of the Marine Corps. So
you decided to go to college.
Yeah, and then I had the GI Bill of Rights, which paid for all of my college education.
All right then. Thank you very much.
Well, is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, I don't know if anybody's going to appreciate it and enjoy it, but I'm glad to have helped you out, and I hope it Hope it works out. I'd like to see it sometime. Well, I think I would, maybe I wouldn't.
All right, thank you.
Okay.